For 12 years, Daniel Walker woke up at 4:30 a.m. Not because he was a morning person. Not because he was motivated. But because the alarm clock told him to. Daniel worked at a warehouse just outside Columbus, Ohio. Concrete floors, fluorescent lights, and the constant hum of forklifts and conveyor belts. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. Barely. Daniel was good at his job. He was reliable, strong, and never late. He was exactly the kind of worker managers depend on but never think to promote. He wore steel-toe boots and carried a quiet frustration. At 34, Daniel's life felt much smaller than it should have. The same shift, the same paycheck, the same bone-deep exhaustion. He wasn't lazy or irresponsible. He did everything he was told was right. And still, nothing ever changed. After work, Daniel would come home to his small apartment. A microwave dinner for one. The TV turned on just for background noise. He'd scroll on his phone until sleep arrived, not from peace, but from pure boredom. The weekends disappeared in a blur, and Sunday nights always felt heavy with the dread of the week ahead. Daniel often found himself thinking, is this it? Not in a dramatic, movie scene way. Just in a tired, resigned way. Growing up, Daniel had watched his own father work himself into the ground. Construction jobs, long hours, and a long list of broken promises to himself. His dad used to say, "At least I'm providing." Daniel understood that sentence all too well. Providing keeps the lights on, sure, but it doesn't build a future. The moment that changed everything for Daniel didn't happen at work. It happened at a gas station. One night, after a brutal double shift, he was standing in line behind a teenage cashier who looked just as exhausted as he felt. The kid couldn't have been more than 19. As Daniel paid for his gas, the cashier looked at him, sighed, and said, "Man, I hope I don't end up doing this forever." The words weren't meant to be hurtful. They were just a tired kid thinking out loud. But they landed like a punch to the gut. Daniel drove the rest of the way home in complete silence. Because for the first time, he saw himself through someone else's eyes. And he didn't like what he saw. That night, Daniel didn't sleep. He wasn't angry at the kid. He was angry at himself. Not for where he was in life, but for how long he had stayed there without ever questioning it. And then, he realized something deeply uncomfortable. He had been waiting. Waiting for someone to notice him. To reward his hard work. To rescue him. But nobody was coming. The next morning, Daniel still went to work. He put on the same boots, clocked in for the same shift. But on the inside, something had cracked open. He stopped telling himself, "This is just how it is." And he started asking, what else could this be? Now, Daniel didn't quit his job. He didn't have some dramatic blow up and storm out. He didn't start chasing some unrealistic, pie-in-the-sky dream. He started with one simple, private rule: no more wasted days. After work, instead of collapsing on the couch, Daniel spent 1 hour learning. Not feel-good motivational content, but practical, tangible skills. He studied logistics systems, inventory management, and basic data tracking on his old laptop. He was determined to learn how the warehouse actually ran, not just how to survive his shift inside it. Some nights, it was miserable. His body ached. His mind resisted. The comfort of the couch and mindless TV called his name. But Daniel kept showing up. Quietly, consistently, for himself. Months passed. On the outside, nothing changed. Same job, same pay. The doubt started creeping back in. Thoughts like, why are you even bothering? You're too old to start over. This isn't going to matter. But even with the doubt, something inside Daniel felt different. He no longer felt invisible to himself. He started making small suggestions at work. Little things to make processes faster, reduce errors, or organize a section more efficiently. At first, his supervisors just ignored him. But then one day, after he pointed out a recurring issue, a manager actually stopped and asked, "How did you figure that out?" Daniel just looked at him calmly and said, "I learned it." That was the beginning. Not of fame or fortune. It was the beginning of respect. Soon, Daniel was asked to help train new hires. Then he was asked to assist with scheduling. Then they pulled him in to help analyze workflow problems. There was still no big raise, still no fancy new title. But now, when he spoke, people listened. By the time he was 37, Daniel was offered a lead role. It wasn't glamorous. There was no applause or ceremony. But it came with trust. And Daniel took that trust seriously. He led without an ego. He worked harder than ever, but now it felt different. He kept learning, kept growing. And something completely unexpected happened. His confidence grew. Not a loud, arrogant confidence, but a quiet, grounded confidence that came from competence. Daniel started saving his money aggressively. He learned about investing and started planning for the long term. He stopped spending money just to cope with his life. His life became quieter, but it also became stronger. At 40, Daniel stood in that same warehouse, but he no longer felt trapped by it. He had options. And having options changes the very way you breathe. One afternoon, a younger worker was complaining next to him, "Man, this job is pointless." Daniel didn't argue. He simply said, "It's only pointless if you stop growing inside it." The kid looked at him, confused. Daniel just smiled. Because he remembered being that kid. Daniel Walker didn't escape blue-collar work. He didn't get rich overnight. He didn't reinvent himself into someone unrecognizable. He reclaimed his dignity. And that changed everything. That's the truth that so many of us need to hear: hard work alone isn't enough. Loyalty to a company, without any personal growth, is a dangerous trap. And waiting to be noticed will cost you the best years of your life. You don't necessarily need to quit your job. You need to quit quitting on yourself. Growth doesn't always start with a big opportunity falling into your lap. Sometimes, it starts with a quiet decision that nobody else even sees. So if you're out there feeling tired, feeling invisible, and wondering if it's too late for you, it's not. You're not behind. You are just one decision away from finally respecting your own potential. And that, right there, is where real change begins. Thanks for watching.